The project tangent command is a way for you to take the tangency from an existing surface or selection of curves and send it over to a new curve. Now, this is a very handy operation if you need to maybe expand upon an existing patch by adding some curves and performing a few modeling operations. Let me give an example. We'll start off with a plane that I'll do some really awesome, ultra cool modeling on. Let's see. Kind of curl it up a little bit, and then right at the end we'll kind of swoop it down. And I'll jump over here to the attribute editor and take the curve precision in shaded mode and crank that up to about 16. So this is all nice and smooth and very easy to read. Now let's grab the EP curve tool, and I'm going to create a curve here. Let's go into the side view. And I'll just extend. I'm going to make sure that it doesn't appear to be tangent to the surface at all for now, because it'll make my example a little easier to see. And we'll curve snap another point over here as well. That pretty much follows the same path as the first curve. Now, I want to extend this surface using these two curves, but I would like some sort of tangency. For example, if I were to grab this isoparm and these two curves and go to Surfaces and choose Bi-Rail and do a Bi-Rail 1, here's what we get. We get that really great crease right there in the middle, and that's not necessarily what I wanted. I wanted something a bit smoother. So what I can do is use the Project Tangent tool to actually take the tangency of this sheet and send it over to these two curves. It's very easy to use. We select the surface, select the curve, come down to Edit Curves and grab Project Tangent, open up the options. Now, you have some choices as to what you would like to exactly project. You can project the tangent or the curvature of the surface. You can align the tangent in various directions, UV or along the normal. You can reverse the direction of the tangent, and you can adjust the scale of the tangent as well as tangent rotation. If you switch over to curvature, you can also scale the curvature. Now, I'm not going to worry about adjusting these too much. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and project my tangent. And let's go ahead and take a look and see what happened here. Let's select the curve and hit 3. You can see now that the base of the curve has taken the tangency of that of the sheet, the plane, and it's been sent right down the curve like so. Let's jump over to the attribute editor and take a look at that project tangent node. Now, we have, of course, our input nodes for the surfaces we selected to create the tool. Down from here, we have curvature, whether or not we wanted to use that. That was off because I didn't have curvature selected. I'll take a look at that here in just a moment. Now, these, of course, everything I'm looking at is analogous to all of the settings here inside the options window. So rather than run the tool multiple times, I'm just simply going ahead and showing you how you can adjust all the options after the fact. We can take tangent direction, change it over to U, and of course now to V, and now we're following the V direction of the plane as opposed to the U direction. We can set it to normal, and now the curve is coming out perpendicularly from the surface at that point. Another very handy tool. We'll go ahead and leave it at U though, so this is nice and smooth. We can reverse the tangent direction. If for some reason when you try to project the tangent, it shoots off in the wrong direction, you can flip it around so that it faces the proper direction. Of course, in my case, it was working out just fine. I don't need to do that. We can scale out the tangent if we need some more tangency room, or we can draw it back if we don't need quite so much. You can also rotate the tangent 360 degrees if you need any adjustment in that vein. We'll go ahead and leave this at 0. And you have the Ignore Edges checkbox, which I'll talk about here in just a moment. I'll actually need a separate example for that. For now, let me select the surface and the other curve. Let me hit the other curve's smoothness up to 3 first. And we'll go ahead and run this operation again, projecting tangency. And we'll increase the scale of this one as well. Now, up here we have the curvature checkbox. If I check this, notice that we are not really worried so much about tangency, though tangency does kind of come along as a part of the system. We're now focusing on taking the curvature of the surface itself and continuing that curvature around the curve. So you'd have to adjust your curvature scale in this case to get everything looking just right. But if you're more interested in taking the entire curvature as opposed to just the tangency, remember that checkbox. Alright, so from here, let's go ahead and grab isoparm, grab these two curves again, go back to surfaces and Bi-Rail once again, and we'll take our surface and I'll set its precision up to 16 again to smooth everything out. And you'll notice we have a nice, clean surface that flows tangentially from one right into the other because we projected that tangency before we created the Bi-Rail. So a very, very handy tool. Let's go ahead and delete all of this. The last thing I wanted to show about project tangent was that little checkbox that appears only in the node after it's created, whether or not to ignore edges. And this has to do with trimmed surfaces. I'll go ahead and create a quick trimmed surface. There's a circle and a plane. Let's come over here to top view. We'll project the curve onto the surface, and I'll get rid of my original circle. Now let's grab our trim tool, and we'll keep the center section. Press enter, and here we go. Now what I'd like to do is to create a curve that is snapped right here to the outside of the trim edge, which might be a little bit hard to see. What you can do to solve that is similar to what we did before. Grab your curve precision in shaded view and set that up to a higher value. So in this case, 16 I think will work out just fine. And let's see, let me grab, yeah, that'll work. Okay, now let's grab our EP curve tool again, and I'll curve snap. Notice how I'm curve snapping out here to the trim edge this time. And I'll just click a couple of times down here on the grid. So, oh, I was using the CV curve tool. Let me get the EP curve tool instead. Not that it matters that much. Okay. So notice that our curve kind of drops down to the grid. It is not tangent to this surface. Let's go ahead and select the surface and the curve. We'll go to Edit Curves and choose Project Tangent, like so. Also notice, by the way, you have the Show Manipulator tool on this operation, so you can scale out the tangency as you will, or rotate the tangent. And you can see how that's actually updating this over inside the attribute editor. So let's go ahead and set our rotation back to 0. Now take a look at what we are actually doing here. If I select my surface, and we don't really have a whole lot of isoparms on this surface. In fact, it might be a little easier if I did have some isoparms. So let me do this. Let me recreate this situation. Let me grab my NURBS surface, and we'll untrim it for now. And let's see if I can get away with rebuilding this surface. Let's see. Let's grab my settings. Let's crank it up. Uniform is good. And 4x4 should work. Oh, and we lose that little circle up there in the corner. I was kind of afraid that would happen, but it's no big deal. I'll just nuke it out and create a new one. Nothing was really wrong with the example I was doing. I just want to make this clear as crystal, so I want you to kind of see the direction that the surface is flowing. So let's see. Let's go ahead and project our curve on surface again. We'll delete out our circle. I'll grab the trim tool. We'll trim out everything but that inner circle. Grab the EP curve tool again, and I'll curve snap once. There we go. Let's grab the surface and the curve, and once again, project tangent. Like so. Now as I increase the tangent scale, just to kind of give you a little more room here, you can actually see what's going on. The curve that I projected tangent onto is not necessarily following the way you might think it would at first if you didn't have the surface selected. You might immediately think to yourself, well, you know, if I'm projecting a tangency out from a circle, that it would come out kind of perpendicular to the angle of the circle, and that's just not the case. You have to remember this is a trimmed surface. It actually has U and V values flowing along, and so what the curve has done is it has projected tangency in the original direction, in this case, in the U direction, of the surface, not worrying about the trim. And the reason it's ignoring the trim is because we have Ignore Edges checked. If I uncheck Ignore Edges, look what happens. Take a close look. You see what's going on? We are actually using the curve itself of the trim edge and taking its tangent. So the tangent of a circle is going to go straight out from the circle along the side like so. And if we try to rotate, we could spin this around until it points right out from the surface. And there you go. It's just kind of a way to create that tangency from a trimmed surface, more like the way you might expect if you hadn't selected the surface and seen which direction everything was flowing. So the Project Tangent tool is very handy, a great way to add on to a surface using curves, taking that tangency so that you get a nice, clean surface without any creases. That's going to wrap things up for this video. Thanks a lot.